Welcome to Journeys with the Goddess, a sacred storytelling podcast. Part ritual, part myth, part guided meditation, where we travel together through the cycles of the seasons to meet the many faces of the divine and remember her not as an ancient legend of long ago, but as a living force within each of us. I'm Bronwyn Claire Asha, singer, storyteller, bardess, and your companion on this adventure inward. Together, we'll travel with the goddesses of the Celtic and ancient worlds. In each episode, I will share one of her stories, followed by a guided meditation where you will meet her for yourself. And I will warn you, these stories are not sanitized fairy tales with happy endings. The goddesses that you'll meet are fierce, complex, beautiful, and untamed. They're powerful women whose stories have survived the centuries to find their way here, to help us on our own paths, and I think you'll find they will meet you exactly when you need to hear them in your own life. We're going to begin with the Morrigan, the great shapeshifter, the guardian of sovereignty, goddess of rebellion, prophecy, transformation. She rises in dark times to remind us that destruction can be sacred and rage can be holy when it clears the way for truth. If you've ever felt called to reclaim your power or shed an old life or stand for something that matters, or to meet yourself at the edge of the veil, you have come to the right place. Come in and rest here for a while, here in this place between worlds, this sonic space of layers and dreaming, a place where the old stories are more alive than ever, and the ancient goddesses have been eagerly awaiting your arrival. In each episode, we begin with an incantation to the goddess. May she illuminate our path with the light of awareness. May she dissolve our hearts into love and give us courage to enter the shadow realms within. May she open us in remembrance of our highest truth. May she hold us gently as we follow her guidance within, and may she help us find the lost pieces of ourselves to come home to. Close your eyes. Know that you are safe here. Breathe deeply and prepare to step with me across the threshold. The way is waiting. Let the circle open and the journey begin. Welcome to episode 1. Wow, here we are. After years of dreaming this into being, I'm so happy that you're actually here, that I'm recording this and you're there on the other side, listening and joining me on this journey. For as you will see, this podcast is exactly that, a journey inward, a ritual of remembrance, perhaps a little different than your usual podcast listening experience. And before we get started, I think you're going to want to get comfortable. Feel free to find somewhere cozy, whether it's morning and you're slowly waking up, or if you're listening to this at the end of your day before you fall into dreaming. Do whatever you need to get yourself set up, to be in a state of receiving, of calm, groundedness. Okay, so for our very first episode, we are beginning at the beginning, or what some could say is also the end. The spiral of Samhain, the threshold between the seasons, between here and what lies beyond. The time of year when the veils between worlds is thinnest. A perfect time to go inward, to listen more carefully. Perhaps you've got your own traditions around this time of year, but for me, the end of October is a sacred time to make space, where the voices of the ancestors can be heard a little bit louder if you stop to listen, where you might find them gently whispering the old stories in the flames of the fire, reaching out to us from the shadows to remind us of our own cycles of endings and beginnings, deaths and rebirths. And maybe in following their gentle urges and whispers, you found your way here, perhaps? With episode 1, we're taking our lead from the goddess, the seasons, and the turning of the year by beginning in the depths, with one of the darkest and most complex goddesses of them all. Because this is not a podcast for the faint of heart, I will warn you now. It is for those who are willing to look into the shadows, to burrow down into the dark cave of dreams and remembrance. Tonight, we begin with the Morrigan, guardian of thresholds, fierce warrior guide, protectoress, she who burns away what no longer serves and invites us to step into the truth of who we are boldly and fiercely and no longer willing to hold back. The Morrigan does not tread lightly, but she does guide faithfully. And through her, we can find our courage, our sovereignty, and the fierce pulse of life that continues beyond endings. But let us begin by finding out exactly who the Morrigan is, if you've not encountered her before. The Morrigan is one of the most ancient figures in Celtic mythology. She was one of the Tuatha people, the earliest mythical peoples of Ireland. She often appears in the form of 3 sisters. Sometimes they're seen as 3 faces of one goddess, sometimes as distinct figures of their own, but always the voices of fate, of war, chaos, and of change. The Morrigan is a shapeshifter. She is a trickster, a seer, a prophetess. And through her, you might also be reminded of goddesses in other mythologies like Kali, the Hindu goddess of destruction and war, the Greek goddess of crossroads and magic Hecate, or Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of war and plague. They were all forces of both protection and destruction. The entity of the Morrigan also has different names. There's Samhain, perhaps the face we will meet tonight, within the energy of the turning of the year as we move to the shorter days and longer, darker nights. She's associated with the ending of cycles, the clearing away of what no longer serves, and she embodies the darkening months, the quiet, the threshold. There's Maka, associated with sovereignty and the land and endurance, a reminder of the power of life to rise again and the seed that needs to sit quietly in the darkness beneath the soil, preparing to surface and blossom when the time is right. And then there's Bard, often depicted as a crow, a foreteller of woe and bad omens, a destroyer and a warrior. Fearsome indeed, but if you do choose to honor and respect her, she can act as a guide through any battlefield or a challenging situation. She's the warrior voice, the one who calls us to vigilance, justice, discernment. Throughout our exploration of the goddesses in this podcast, we're going to be delving into many different forms of the goddess over the winter season, into spring, into summer, back into autumn again, the wheel of the year. And each season and each specific time of year is going to invite us to step into a different part of the goddess's wisdom. But for Samhain, we are going to honor her in her crone or wise woman form as the threshold keeper. She who clears space for renewal, she who is willing to destroy what isn't working in order to create something new. And perhaps you yourself are in a moment of transition, feeling like things aren't really working anymore, you're ready for something different, you're just not exactly sure what that looks like yet. Perhaps you're going through a particularly challenging moment of your own and are ready for things to just start going a bit easier. And even in this time of global change and disruption and uncertainty, we are also going through this together as a collective on Earth. So whatever that looks like and feels like in your own life, that's going to be unique to you. But I do think that together we can call upon the Morrigan in her wisdom, in her boldness, and her ferocity to help us move into this next phase. From destruction to creation, the spirit of renewal. And so tonight, on this auspicious evening, we are going to journey with the Morrigan to delve into our own shadows. That which needs to die off in order to rise again. The ember glowing and smoldering, ready to be fanned and ignited. And we can remember that the Morrigan isn't just an old story. She's not this mystical goddess of the past. She is still alive in the land, in the sky, in the shadows that we often avoid, in the flames of the fire, the courage that we summon whenever we face the unknown. And she can be called upon for support at any of these times. There are many stories about the Morrigan that are found in ancient Irish manuscripts that date back thousands of years. Stories of her shape-shifting, of her omen-telling, the battles that she fought in. And the story that I want to tell you tonight has a little bit of all of that and is the most fitting because it took place around this time of year, Samhain, or October 31st. And you might know it better as Halloween or All Hallows Eve or All Saints Day even. And so get cozy and let me tell you the story of the Morrigan. It was a time when the land was especially dark and quiet. A time when the land of the mythical Tua people was being ruled by tyranny and wickedness. This was the time of the Fomorian rule, and a great sickness had spread to those once proud people. A sickness not of their bodies, but their spirits. Indach, son of Deodomnan, the Fomorian king, he had become greedier and more corrupt as each day under his rule passed. Taking grain from the hungry, sending young men to die for land that was not theirs, forbidding gatherings, music, ritual, ceremony. And so fear had settled over the land like smoke. People kept their eyes lowered to the ground, working harder than ever for even less money, forgetting their magic, keeping their voices quiet just in case someone they couldn't trust was listening. There was no place here for dreaming, for joy, for song, or community. Story. And it was that very silence, that quiet, woeful, slow, and pitiful surrender that was what finally summoned her. Perhaps you know this already, but there are powers in this world that don't come to comfort you. They don't arrive with a quiet knock at the door or through a little niggling nudge fluttering gently like a feather behind your breastbone. They come in a storm, a whipping of the wind, a crashing of the waves, a shattered mirror, the raging roar of a forest fire surging forward out of control. They come when you have nothing left to lose. One of those powers has a name older than kings, than empires, than fear itself. The Phantom Queen. The fire that clears, the darkness that awakens, the Morrigan. And it was for her that evening of Samhain that Dagda, king of the Tua, was waiting. The good god, the barrel-chested warrior, his fierceness in battle matched with his love of a good joke or story, the strength of his arms paired with the deep rolling of his laughter, his magic staff of hawthorn able to bring life just as easily as it brought death. Dagda, the great god, his giant form lurking, pacing, waiting for his lover by the ford on the river Unshin. He would wait until she was ready, until she had bathed herself in the river and sent for him. And he would come to her, his heart pulsing in anticipation of seeing her once more after a year apart. For the Queen of Crows would allow him to come to her only once a year on this sacred night, to worship the altar of her body and come together in sacred and blissful union. And it was only as their bodies surged together in ecstasy on this sacred night that her visions would be clearest and most powerful. And on this Samhain in particular, the seer prophetess moved into trance, crying out in bliss and in agony as she flew in her visions over corpses strewn across the land, the wreckage of war and blood-soaked soil stretching out beneath her. But as she looked closer, her yellow raven eyes narrowing, she saw past and future spiraling together, and her visions gave her strength and certainty that for new life to come again, first there would need to be destruction. And after they had lain together, she spoke to him. The time for tenderness was over. The time for battle was nigh. King and queen, god and goddess plotted and strategized with great speed, deciding their roles in this insurgency, the Morrigan stressing that they must act this very night, while her power was strongest, because behind her the powers of the unseen world too could rally. And so the Dagda set off, striding across hill and river to gather his men together, and the Morrigan towards the villages. And so it was that night, before the turning of Samhain, that a cold mist blew over the land, and a fierce wind began shaking the oak and ash of their dying leaves, and a frost spread quickly, covering the fields in a blanket of white. And they felt her before they saw her, a subtle but marked shift, the thinning of the veil. But this soft gossamer of dim dusk light that the goddess draped silently over the village, this was not just there to separate the world of the living and the dead, but to separate those who had given in to cowardice and those with whom the spark still flickered dimly within, those still with a glint of magic and hope in their tired eyes. And the people looked out from their houses, silhouetted by the flames of their fires, feeling ill at ease. And as the wind and the dogs howled woefully in unison, there came another sound riding atop that woeful chorus. Far off at first, a single crow's caw echoing against the hills and through the dark valleys. Then another call, then many, circling, spiraling, gathering over the land like a black, quick-moving storm cloud, moving together and getting louder and more ominous sounding. The elders and the druids knew the sign, and they bowed their heads, some dropping to their knees and crying out in fear. Bash Katha, the battle crow, had come. And this meant that war was no longer a matter of choice. Neither king nor army could stop what was coming. The land had reached its breaking point. The people would wake. What had been endured too long would be endured no more. And then, from the shadows, the form of a giant woman could be seen coming down from the hills. Some that were there described her as monstrous, huge, old, wrinkled, and hideous. They could hardly even raise their eyes to look at her. But in a world that had long since surrendered to lies and shallowness, I think it more likely that she was only terrible to behold because she was so honest, so unadorned, so embodied and whole and true to herself. And it is said that as she walked down to the throngs of cowering people, something passed over them. It is said that where she walked, men and women either rose to courage or they crumbled before her. She did not strike them down. She didn't have to. She simply revealed them to themselves. And that was enough. The old stories say that the Morrigan moves before battle, not to support one side over another, but because her allegiance is only to truth. She cares nothing for the ambitions of kings. She cares not for the blood and the names that you were born with, of the lineage and line. She will ride in battle only with those who fight for what must not be lost. For honor, for freedom, for justice. Some say she's a goddess of destruction and of violence and brutality, but I see her more than anything as a goddess of power. And power demands responsibility. And when power is corrupted, the Morrigan must rise and encourage all others to do the same. And so the Morrigan rose that night not as a savior, but as a force of nature, of necessary destruction. Fires were lit, signal after signal ignited across the hills, and those voices, long shamed into silence and complicity, they were now roaring awake. And so began the Second Battle of Moytura. The proud Tuatha armies finally rising up after centuries of oppression to fight the Fomorian overlords who had forgotten that their power over them only relied on their compliance. And on this night, the Morrigan was the frenzy that spread through soldiers' hearts, her force twisting and unmaking armies from within. She moved unseen into the chaos of war, a shadow in the sky, a stirring in the earth. Some say in the form of a black shadow of crows, some in the form of showers of sorcery and magic, mist and rains of fire, the screeching cry of crows and ravens so loud that blood fell from the ears of those who heard it. The warriors, gods, goddesses, and common people fought together with the unity that the Morrigan brought to their hearts, against the oppression, the destruction of their lands, the loneliness and rage that they had felt in being so separate and distracted that they hadn't done something sooner. But their power united was immense, and no match for the king and his few remaining followers who fled in fear back to their lands beneath the sea. And the land that had been ravaged by the plagues and pestilences of the years before now burned, leaving ash and ember that the Tuatha people restored through the magic they were beginning again to remember. Tendrils of green stretched their fingers over the earth, restoring it to health and fertility. Music and song filled the air again, and the people gathered in ceremony and renewal to honor the land and its protectors. And once her work was done, the Morrigan returned to the shadows, protecting from a distance, watching and waiting until she might be needed again, to remind us once more of the courage it requires to release what no longer serves, reminding us that our power is ours to claim only if we are willing to rise and meet our own face in the flame. And now, with the embers of the story still burning within you, perhaps you'd like to journey inwards to meet the Morrigan. For now that you know her, she wishes to know you too. If you are willing, take a deep breath. Close your eyes if they're not already closed, and let everything around you fall away for the next 15 minutes or so. Feel your body grounded into the earth beneath you, the weight of your bones, the touch of the air on your skin. This is your space, your threshold, your doorway inward. Now, imagine yourself standing on a hill. The air is cold and whipping around you, Its bite wakes you from the relaxed state of slumber you've been in until now. Your eyes open to the sky above, gray as slate. Below you, your feet are bare and cold on the earth, and the land around you is quiet, except for the sound of the wind blowing through the bare branches of a nearby tree. As you look at the scene before you, you begin to feel a presence above you on the branch of a nearby tree. A raven, as black blue as the night sky in winter, is watching you with its bright, shining eyes. And in those eyes you sense the presence of a power more ancient than even the land beneath you. And then you feel a faint stirring of remembrance, recognition. It's her. As you watch her, she watches you. You feel no fear, only her courage reflected in your own. You stand taller, you gaze deeply into her eyes, unflinching, matching that power. And as she sees you in your warrior form, she cocks her head to one side. A shadow like dark mist begins to sweep around the tree until she stands before you in the form of a woman. Emerging from that haze, she is beautiful. She is wise and strong, tall, with skin like the bark of a willow tree, old and lined with the lessons of thousands of years she has lived. She speaks to you, her voice powerful and ringing out, telling you to look carefully at the landscape before you. You turn, and you notice what you didn't see before. Before you, on the hill below, lies the remnants of a battlefield. The battlefield of your life before this moment. Your challenges, your fears, your limitations. You look at it not one pain or obstacle at a time, but in its full entirety. All those dark nights and difficulties that you have passed through as they stretch out over the landscape, heavy, dusty, gray, and worn. And then swiftly and gracefully you watch as the woman moves away from you. Instead of getting smaller as she moves towards the horizon, she gets even larger. She sweeps across the land in a billow of black smoke. And with each thundering step she takes through it, it begins to shake and crumble. Each step she takes like an earthquake, shaking loose what has held you back, what has silenced your voice. Old patterns, old beliefs, and delusions, they begin to fall away. And as you see it crumble and collapse into itself to be swallowed up by the earth, you feel a lightness, like a layer of skin has just fallen from you. And in the wake of each thundering footstep, the land begins to burn and smolder, clouds of dust and smoke folding around her like a cape, until it lifts her up from the land and she shapeshifts into a giant cloud of crows, black, crying out, screeching louder and louder, angrier and more full of rage. And as the sound gets louder, you don't feel fear from the sound, but excitement, your own rage stirring within you, this energy surging forth, tearing from your heart up into your throat, into a bellow, into a battle cry, a scream of primal rage and all the frustration, all the anger, everything you never expressed when you wanted to, your own power being whipped up in the frenzy of it all. And as you scream out, your own power rises triumphantly within you. You welcome it in like an old friend, an ally. You allow it to burn away fears and doubts and anything that is still holding you back. Anything that hasn't yet been cleared from the battlefield of your life. In that scream, it turns to dust. Imagine it within you, clearing that space, setting your heart aflame as it makes room for courage now, for clarity, and for action. The cloud of crows above has quietened now and begins to slowly circle over you. You feel the brush of the wings, the stirring of the wind. You smell the sharp scent of rain and burning earth. She circles you, almost like she is blessing you and preparing your inner warrior for the next battle that you are now ready to fight. You hear her voice asking only that you face yourself honestly, that you recognize the parts of yourself that you have hidden, that have submitted, that have made themselves smaller and accepted less than truth. Now she invites you to action, to make a vow to yourself, to clear away one thing that is no longer working, to make room for something that will. Give yourself a moment, listen to what that is, and to make that vow to yourself. And to seal your oath together, you and the goddess, the Morrigan, you pull your powers up together and inward and out into two bolts of lightning that sear into the earth. Black and crimson, like fire and shadow intertwined, dark and light braided together, this energy now flowing towards you, through your body, into your feet, and down into the earth. This power, it carries the courage to resist, the strength to rise, the power to act with truth. Take it in. Let it fill your body, your mind, your heart, as she blesses you and says any final words you need to hear. And when she has said her final farewells, she moves away, circling high above, getting smaller and smaller. Let the vision settle. You do not need to follow her. You don't need to chase her for her power, for it is now within you. Take a moment here. Breathe. Turn your focus inward and feel the fire she leaves in your chest. The visions she leaves in your mind. The courage and strength she leaves in your limbs. For this is the Morrigan's gift. Truth, liberation, and the call to resist what diminishes life. Bring your awareness back to your own body now. Feel the room around you. Stretch slowly. Wiggle your fingers and toes, and when you are ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the space. And as the veil thins this evening, May you honor your endings. May you trust your truth. And may you choose your path now with courage and the gift of the goddess in your own fierce heart.
A whisper on the wind, a story seldom told. Silence grows so grim as without you so within, the veil is getting thin. Cracks and fissures glowing bright, slow and steady holding tight. New dreams dawning, old ways falling, in stone and clay and light. Can you see it? Can you feel it? The warrior strength of your fierce heart. Ancient secretary holds a frequency. Without darkness, there's no light. Seer sight reveals the truth. The prophecy is in the proof. A horde it gathers on the plain, land and life and power to gain, but not this time, not again. A cloud of crows flies overhead, bloody murder raining. Spirits conjured, courage squandered, a battlefield of death and dread. Can you see it? Can you feel it? The warrior strength of your fierce heart. Ancient secretary holds a frequency. Without the darkness, there's no light. After war there can be peace, old indemnities to cease. A land of bounty pure and true, what comes to me can come to you, washed and blended all anew. Victory, it fans the flames. Fate breaks free of all its chains. Old kings thwarted, new queens courted. Her power runs still in our veins. Can you see it? Can you feel it? The warrior strength of your fierce heart. Ancient secretary holds that frequency. Without the darkness, there's no light.
And so concludes the first episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, for journeying along with me and the Morrigan, our first goddess in this exploration of the divine feminine through the goddess archetypes. I hope you found it illuminating, and that the embers of the story and the meditation and the song will continue to burn through the darkness, empowering you in your own storyline and allowing for new beginnings, as well as honoring the old endings, the ancestors, and those protecting us in this realm and the unseen realms. If you'd like to learn more about the Morrigan, there are countless resources on her. She's a goddess that's very much revered in pagan and Wiccan traditions, and there's lots of ways that you can bring her into your own life and your own rituals to honor her at this time of the year and beyond. And I recommend that you trust your own intuition on how to do that best. Some will add pieces to their altars to represent her in the form of feathers or images of crows or ravens or the colors black or crimson. Prayers or invocations to her for support in difficult times or times of transition is another way that you can call upon her for guidance. And because she's associated so much with prophecy and with fate, you could incorporate her or ask her for guidance in the form of tarot readings or other forms of divination as a means of connecting with her energies. Other things like walking in nature, or creating your own art, your own song, your own poetry that's inspired by her, making offerings to her in the form of wine or incense burning, the lighting of a candle, or with black stones or crystals. Those might also be ways that you feel called to connect with her. But trust that you know the way to work with her best, and there's no right way or wrong way to do it. If you felt like the guided journey with her was helpful, but perhaps there's more that you want to learn from her, feel free, of course, to listen again to the journey and see what comes up. But this episode is really just a place for you to start. Another way that you can continue the journey is to get out your journal and write down any powerful images that may still be with you or what you saw on your journey. That could be a great starting point. And I'm going to leave a couple of links to resources as well as some journal prompts in the show notes to help you on your way. I'd also love to hear what you experienced by listening to this episode, so please feel free to reach out to me. You can connect with me on my Instagram at Bronwyn Claire Asha or by emailing me. Any feedback is welcome. I would love to hear what resonated with you, what didn't. If there's goddesses that you'd really like me to explore in later episodes, get in touch. A new episode is going to be released in a month's time and on the last Friday of every month. So be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any of the episodes. In the next episode, we're going to be journeying with Ceridwen, who's a Welsh goddess of the underworld. So very good for working with in the months of winter and November. She's the keeper of the cauldron of knowledge, of inspiration, transformation, alchemy, and rebirth. I'm really looking forward to that one. So please join us in a month's time. And if this episode stirred something in you, if the Morrigan's voice found an echo in your own and you think that a dear friend might be able to benefit from her gifts in this story and this meditation, I invite you, of course, to share it with them and spread the word. And you can also help by leaving a review, which will help others find their way to journey themselves with the goddess and hear these stories and songs, keeping them alive in this age and beyond. All of that would be hugely appreciated. So, thank you again for walking beside me, for listening, and for remembering. I wish you a very happy Samhain, and until next time.